Hello, everybody, and welcome to another adventure in history. Hope everybody's doing great. Hope everybody is having a wonderful day, or night, or evening, or whatever it is in your time zone. I hope you're having a wonderful time zone. How about that? What's up, KP? Good to see you, my friend, as always. Hey, everybody. It's been a long week. So this is the first full week of students being back. I did teaching Thursday and Friday of last week. Oh, pecan pie. Oh, I am jealous, green herring. That is one of my favorites. I do quite love pecan pie. Very jealous of you. I usually don't get pecan pie until the holidays. But every now and then, I just get the urge to just make myself one. Either that or a sweet potato pie. I've actually, one of the, and I might have talked about this before on stream, but one of the things that I managed to get from my grandmother, so this is my dad's mom, before she passed, was a love of cooking, specifically cooking sweet stuff. And I can cook a mean pie, and I can do a lot of the traditional candy stuff, and I can make a pretty mean pecan pie. I just don't, because I try to keep myself not, a billion pounds, but I could eat an entire pecan pie by myself. What's up, Tuna? Good to see you. Hope you all are doing well. So I was saying that this is the first week that students are back for the full week, and the only thing that I can... Are you not entertained? What's up, Steve? Hey, Steve, and likely friends.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus. So many announcements and things.
I'm Spartacus! I'm Spartacus!
I'm Spartacus.
I'm Spartacus!
Steve, let me say this while you are here and I can actually intone it with words instead of typing goofy little sayings. Happy birthday, my friend. For those of you that do not know Steve Conley, who just lovingly brought in his group, Steve Conley is just a great cartoonist with a very broad imagination that makes me laugh. If you appreciate my humor, you will appreciate Steve's, because he does it better than I do in most cases. But you should definitely go give him a follow and share with him some birthday wishes. It is a completion of his lap around the sun, and it's good times for all. Moose, thank you so much for that resub. I appreciate it very much. For those of you that don't know who I am, that might have come in with a raid, or maybe you're here first time. Hello, my name is Shane. I am a college teacher, and I teach history and sociology at college. And I've been teaching for, about 15 years now, and I've taught everything from elementary school all the way up to university level classes. So I've been around the teaching block, and here on this particular channel, what I usually do is talk history stuff and things that happen in history, and how this is not boring stuff, but this is good stuff, and how we can really appreciate all of this in a hopefully new and not lame way. But welcome, everybody. Please feel free to participate at whatever level you feel comfortable. We welcome all sorts here. And as long as everybody is chill and cool, we can have diverse opinions, and we can talk about a lot of different stuff, and we can still have a good time and be friends at the end of the night, right? Yeah, so welcome in. So how is everybody that came in? Let me see what we got. Let me make sure I say hello to everybody. Moose, hello. David, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. We should catch up sometime. Like maybe this weekend, if you're around. Maybe do like a Zoom call or a Discord call or something like that. It's been a while since we've talked. Tropical, good to see you, my friend. Welcome in. Hope that the world is treating you nicely. Green Herring is coming in with us. Dry Race Girl, good to see you. Good to see you. Hope the world is nice to you too. We've got Green Herring is here. Illuminated Art, welcome, welcome. What does ketchup have to do with it? I don't know. Oh, we need to ketchup. I'm seeing what you're putting down there, Moose. It caught me a little bit, but I got it. I got it. Yep. I got it. I'm working on something that I said that I would have done, but I didn't get done before stream, so I'm doing it now. I don't know why it won't let me make it, though. There we go. There we go. There we go. How about that? Oh, it won't let me do it. Oh, crazy, because I guess I'm streaming and it won't let me start that. No, I don't need you to give me legal advice. I haven't chatted in a while. So I guess next time I stream, this will be live, because I didn't know that I couldn't turn this on mid-stream. Oh, I guess I can turn it on mid-stream. There we go. It just started. People have asked, and I will deliver. People have been waiting for me to make a new community goal, because people have points that they're trying to burn. So there is a new community goal, and it is posted. You can now throw all of your points at it if you want to, at a certain rate at a time. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. The particular stream is going to be delivered upon completion of the community goal. It is a very high one, because, well, it's probably going to get me in trouble. It's double posted. I don't know what that means. It should only be there once. Yeah, so you want to know my opinion on stuff? There's your option. It's showing up twice in the redemptions. It shouldn't, because there's only one of them there. Let me refresh this and see. Yeah, it's only there once. So you might need to refresh. So there it is. You want a whole stream of me ranting about stuff for questions that you asked? There it is. And we'll get there when we get there, and I will be deleting the VOD of that one as soon as it's done. That one will not be saved for posterity. I might get myself in trouble in the process. So you want it, you got it. There we go. All right. I'm actually kind of worried about that already, just to let you know. But I try to give people what they ask for. All right, so welcome everybody. This is Adventures in History, and on Thursday nights we talk about history in chronological order, and it just so happens, it's not going to let you spend 100,000 points at once. I think that it has a maximum donation limit. I got a lot of problems with you people, and now you're going to hear about it. Kruger! Not to be used against Shane in a court of law. Correct. I'll just put a giant disclaimer banner at the bottom. It'll be like Festivus for the rest of us, right? Um, but anyway, hey, Lumpy. You can take him, Georgie. Lumpy, Dragon Potato, welcome in. Did I miss anybody along the way? I think I got everybody. Hello, everybody. Okay. So, we usually cover history in chronological order, but last time I left out a particular lesson / stream so that it would fit well and fit better with this particular story or this particular mode. A lot of the stuff that we are going to be covering is going to happen in the 500s. In fact, quite a bit of this is going to begin at least in the 500s, and then, you know, there's stuff. So we're going to start in the 500s, and we're going to talk a little bit about the 600s, and we're mostly going to talk about Islam. And this is going to, of course, be the last of the really big religions on Earth that we are going to cover. We've done all of the other really big ones. There are a couple of others that we'll probably do. I will probably do a stream on Sikhism, and that might be the last one. I don't know. We are probably not going to cover Pastafarianism. No. Nor will we cover Scientology. Though it would be pretty fun to cover Scientology and share all of the information that is supposed to basically make me paralyzed if I know it. But that might actually make the Scientologists mad, and they might, like, sue me or something. So, yeah, Islam. We've done, in the past, we've done Buddhism and Hinduism and Confucianism and Christianity and Judaism and Zoroastrianism and Jainism, and now we're here in the 500s and early 600s talking about Islam. The stream would just happen to freeze when you said it, so we think you're frozen. Am I actually frozen? Am I dropping frames? I'm not supposed to be dropping frames. It says I've got the little green light. Okay. So, you see no way of this being controversial at all. Well, it's a big religion, and it's a very important religion because there's a whole bunch of people on Earth that still believe this. And it came out of history, and it's... Oh, I meant if you got into the unspeakable part of Scientology. I gotcha. Gotcha. Looking forward to the coins that Shane has that show Muhammad. I don't have any coins that show Muhammad. Abdul Malik is the first coin maker, I believe, in the Caliphate. And he's in like the 690s. He's one of the Umayyads. I think 697 or 698 is the first Arabic coinage that we get that's widely used. And I'm pretty sure it's the Caliph Malik that does it. But I'm not 100% certain. You're welcome to check me on that. And tell me that I'm full of crap, because it's been a little while since I've looked specifically at that stuff. All right. So, yeah, let's talk Islam. And to talk Islam, we've got to start with the beginning, with a guy named Muhammad. Now, what up with this guy? Who is he? Since I don't know for sure, I'll make up facts. That's, I mean, kind of what happens anyway. It's more or less what I would have expected, right? So Muhammad is born somewhere around 570. Whether or not that is exactly when he's born is a little bit... not sure. 570 is a pretty good guess, though. We have quite a bit of biological information about Muhammad. We know that he died in 632, and that he was, at that point, about 62 years of age, but whether or not they count age the same way that we do is a little bit questionable. So 570 is a pretty good guess, but I should say it this way. There are some people that doubt biological and biographical. Yes, biographical. I do mean biographical. I don't know why I said biological. I am full of crap. You just can't prove it in this instance. That's fair. I'll take it. You used to have an ongoing contest with your bestie on who could come up with the funniest religion name in civilization. He has Splish Splash, the religion that makes waves, and I have Tramp Stampion, and the symbol is a butterfly. Well, there we go. What's up, Bigger Blue? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. He does have families. Yeah, he does have family. And depending on how you particularly look at it, one of them is still alive. But we'll get to that later on. But if Muhammad were to be put in a cage wrestling match against the Buddha, who would win? It depends on what particular version of the Buddha's life we're talking about. If we're talking about I've sat under a tree on a hill to the point that I'm almost dead Buddha, I mean, Muhammad would beat the junk out of that guy. But even healthy and hale Buddha, Muhammad did a lot of work in his young life. He was, and this actually leads us into the story, so he was born into a family that wasn't necessarily super wealthy, and his parents died when he was fairly young, so he ended up getting adopted by his uncle. And his uncle was, for most pretenses, what we would call a merchant, and sort of ran stuff up and down some trade routes that had moved around Western Arabia. Of course, the particular area that we're talking about areas are basically this little strip of territory right here along the Red Sea, a little bit into these highlands, and then, of course, a little bit more up here towards what we would call, the Sinai region. But, oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, these things are kind of funny, but, they might have some legit value that we can get out of it. But Muhammad definitely would have been somebody that was accustomed to doing some work. Now, he probably wasn't, doing like slave labor because he was part of the family. And it does look like he was fairly well taken care of by his uncle. And so much so that his uncle arranged a marriage for Muhammad, or helped arrange a marriage for Muhammad, and Muhammad married a fairly wealthy older woman named Khadijah, and around the time of Muhammad's young, like 20s or so, he's basically going to be able to take over some of kind of the family business, if you will. And this is going to be in West Philadelphia, born and raised. In West Arabia, born and raised. All the caravan is where I spent most of my days. So Muhammad could take L. Ron Hubbard pretty easily. Oh, I'd give that one to Muhammad, hands down. I don't think L. Ron Hubbard could fight his way out of a wet paper bag. I don't think L. Ron Hubbard had anything on Muhammad. I'm pretty sure Muhammad beat the crap out of him. So one of the things that this is going to do when Muhammad is traveling a little bit in the area, it's going to give him access and exposure to people of a lot of different ideas, right? And this particular region here along the Red Sea coastline had begun to develop as part of a larger trade network. Now, let's be clear. The cities that were in this region, like Mecca and Medina, which we'll mention in just a bit, were not super gigantic trade hubs that everybody had to go to. They were important for the region, and if we look at these cities population-wise, they would have had high populations for settlements in Arabia, but the city of Mecca was not on an equitable playing field of something that would have been on the Silk Road, a city that would have been a major trading hub there. It would have been probably a smaller metropolitan area if we were to try to give it a modern, analog. But Mecca nor Medina were particularly gigantic, big, important cities. What they were places where a lot of people showed up and places where routes crossed each other. and places where certain groups of people came during certain periods of the year to meet together and to practice religious ceremonies together. So he couldn't write his way out of a paper bag either. I've read quite a bit of what L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and it's not so great. There's a lot of internal silliness going on there. Do you think that the Scientology Illuminati are going to come get Moose for saying Hubbard couldn't write? Look, I'm just saying that, DC-10's flying international space ghosts into volcanoes on Earth and then blowing them up with hydrogen nuclear weapons is not necessarily the best foundation of a religion. But a lot of people would say that, a dude dying on a stick by, his own people killing him because the Romans said so, and then him coming back on the third day is not the good basis for religion. So I don't know if I'm anybody to necessarily judge here. These small aliens evolved large noses to smell gold and now run all over the banks in the galaxy. What? Is that a Niffler from Harry Potter? They're evolved from sharks? Dude, I have no idea. He wants to gather our shoes. If this isn't a Niffler from Harry Potter, I really don't have any idea what we're talking about at this point. But hey, a junk collector's good to see you. Oh, that's L. Ron Hubbard from Battlefield Earth. Okay. It's been so long since I've read or seen that I have completely lost all reference for it. So I vote for Old Women Lying in Ponds, Strange Women Lying in Ponds Distributing Swords 2024. Okay. So yours, I was thinking that you were playing in with Junk Collector there. Origins of Religious Foundations. Okay. Okay, I'm with you now. Okay. We're all on the same page. It's not in the movie. The movie over the color is like a third of the book, which is massive. That makes sense. Okay, so he's traveling around, he's meeting a lot of people, and he's running into specifically other religious ideologies. And in this particular world that he's living in, there is a mix of religious ideology. So in Arabia in the 500s, when Muhammad would be growing up in the early 600s, when he is, sort of coming into his adulthood and doing his own thing, there are a pretty wide variety of potential religious ideologies that you can ascribe to if you are living down here in Arabia. The majority of the people in the region are some version of what we would call traditional religious groups. You might call them pagan, or you might call them polytheistic, whatever you would like. There are a lot of religious sites that are sort of scattered around this region right here of Arabia, including at Mecca. One of the reasons that Mecca was sort of sought after by Muhammad later on is because it was already ascribed to be a major religious site, and the Bedouin people would come out of the sort of more rugged areas during particular times of the year and come to Mecca to practice certain religious ceremonies around this particular building, which goes on to be the Kaaba, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. So anyway, you can have various versions of polytheism, including a pretty powerful influence from the Nabatean gods. So if you remember way back in the stream, or if you've never heard of them before, sitting right here in what is modern-day Jordan, there used to be an empire called the Nabateans, and they were particularly powerful in the about the 300s or so BC, all the way through about the 100s AD when they were conquered by Rome. But their religious pantheon had spread down here into the Arabian world, and some of their gods were represented with a fair number of followers down here in Arabia. But there were also Jewish people in Arabia at that time, and some of the Arabs had already converted to Christianity. So if you have been with us for a while on stream, you might remember us talking about the Ghassanid tribes that were right here that had basically allied themselves with Rome and converted to Christianity. So you get Christianity down here. And what I'm telling you this for is to let you know that Muhammad had exposure to probably all of these religious thoughts. The Kaaba, not the kebab. If you've ever seen the big black rock looking thing that people walk around 7 times counterclockwise when they're on pilgrimage to Mecca, that's the Kaaba. You totally said strange in your head. Your fingers did that on their own. This sounds amazing. You might watch that movie now. It's almost as big as John Travolta's ego. Ooh, there's a good one. Shane is my hero. There goes my hero. Watch him as he folds. I love Euros. Specifically, really good Euros that are like kind of dripping with grease. I just...
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? Is that not why you're here? Steve Sketches. What's up, Steve? How's it going, my friends? Good to see you. It has been a minute. If you all don't know who Steve Sketches is, you got to go follow this guy. He is a great artist. He has hot take opinions on stuff. He is currently working on his own RPG / world to put his RPG in, while doing both the art and the mechanics of it. Really interesting stuff to watch him work through. You just dropped a hot one before you rated. Well, it's good to know that I accurately described your stream, right? Hello, everybody coming in on Steve Sketches streams. If you don't know who I am, my name is Shane. I teach college history and sociology. Tonight, we're talking history, specifically the history of Islam. And we are talking about Muhammad, the founder of Islam, and we've gotten all the way up to the point where he's about to start hearing voices, like extra spicy. I might have to go back and check the VOD to see if it's worth clipping anything then. I feel like I could just leave the comment poggers and you'd be capable of telling me a really interesting history of the Komodo dragon emote. No, don't clip it, please. Nix is like, no, don't do that. Don't say that for posterity. What's up, Nick Slottle? Good to see you. You will see beside Nick Slottle's name the artist emote, which means that Nick Slottle has worked on emotes for this channel. And you can see the adorable puppy head pat emote that was graciously donated by Nick Slottle. Thank you very much again. It is becoming the most shared emote on my channel, so hats off. It was very spicy. You're just making me want to watch it more, by the way. That's what you're doing. You're making me want to watch it more. Okay, so Muhammad, he's traveling, he's doing his thing, he's spending time alone, and he kind of gets into this kind of personal feeling of, I need to figure out what's going on, right? He's seen other religions. He has heard other religious teachings, but he doesn't really feel like any of them fit for him. So he starts spending a lot of time by himself, especially time by himself out in the wilderness. And in this particular region of Arabia, there's a lot of wilderness, right? And he especially likes spending time in some caves, and he is trying to do meditation and thinking about stuff and pondering over these things. Then he hears a voice talking to him. And initially it freaks him out, right? He goes, holy crap, what the devil is this? And he keeps hearing these words that are being said to him, and he eventually tells his wife, he's like, look, I think I'm either going crazy or I'm possessed by demons. And she's like, ho no. Voices, okay, that's odd, right? But you're a good dude possessed by demons. I don't know if that really works. What if it's not demons? What if it's an angel? And he's like, well, that's a fair point. Let me go maybe try to communicate with this thing. And he starts communing with this particular voice, and he, according to his statement, learns that it is the angel Jibril. Now, if you are familiar with the Christian or Jewish angelic kind of stuff, this is Gabriel. Same being. And according to Muhammad, Jibril tells Muhammad that Allah has chosen him to be a prophet. And in fact, not just any prophet, but the final prophet, to deliver Allah's last revelation to the people. And Muhammad talks with Jibril, and he's like, which Allah, which God is this, right? And Jibril tells him, like, this is the God of the monotheistic faith, right? So it's worth taking a moment for us in this particular situation to describe Allah as described in Islam. So what are some characteristics of Allah? Well, first off, one God. This is a monotheistic religion. Allah is the only God. There is no other God. Allah does not have a gender or a sex. Allah is not a male or a female. Allah is just Allah. There is no equal to Allah. So there's no peer. There's no equal. There's no mate. So there's not like a positive or a negative or a male and a female aspect. There's not even a physical body there. It's just Allah. And Allah is omniscient, knowing all things, including knowing all things that will happen. And this is actually pretty interesting here, because if you look at most Muslim teachings, it says that Allah already knows what everything is going to be, and in that way has kind of predestined the world, but they still allow for free will. So it's sort of a balance of a couple of different aspects or ideas that might not necessarily be completely compatible, but they have a lot of theology that backs all of this stuff up, of course, if you believe their theology. There is going to be no errancy inside of Allah, right? So there's no error or sin or fault or flaw. And once again, this is the same God that was the God of the Jewish people and the same God that was the God of the Christian people. And you go, okay, well, if it's the same God that's the God of the Christian people, what up with Jesus? Well, Jesus, who is typically referred to as Isa in Muslim tradition, is a prophet. And the Christians got a lot of the story, but they got too caught up on Jesus being God when he wasn't. He was just a prophet that was blessed by God and had a lot of power because of that blessing to do things like miracles, but was not the Son of God. And Muslims say that Jews and Christians are what they call people of the book, meaning that they have a lot of shared theology, but they're not quite there. But there is a distinction in Islam between Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and everybody else. So if you are in one of these three religions, you are on a different sort of tier, if you will. So there's all of the other religions that are like bottom tier, and then there's like a special tier that's at the top, with Jewish faith, Christian faith, and Islam being the ideal faith of those three, if that makes any sense. Muhammad's wife sounds like a terrible therapist. It worked out pretty well for him. Prophet, I didn't vote for him. You don't vote for a prophet. Hey, voice in my head, are you a demon or an angel? Demon. Oh, an angel, definitely. Technically not lying. Well, there we go. You thought Allah was male. Male pronouns are used to describe Allah, but Allah has no physical body to have a gender or sexual aspect, if that makes any sense. In the same way that if you really look at Christian faith, Yahweh is not supposed to be considered male or female. but have aspects of all, if that makes any sense at all. If everything is predetermined, there can't be free will. Yeah, there's a way that they explain it, and it gets fairly deep. And usually in my streams, unless there are specific questions, I try my best to just give what we call like wave top descriptions of things. Now, we can dig down a little bit, but I'll be completely honest and say that I don't know if I could properly and with enough respect to the beliefs explain that in a way that would make sense. You're not wrong, but you gotta love a smart people. Islam is S tier. Yes, it is correct. Yeah, there's no like parts, but there's also not any. How do I say this? In Islam, Allah is not relatable to humans in any way. Allah always was and always will be. And there's no comparison between Allah and a human. And things like gender and things like sex, biological sex, are human things, and they don't relate to Allah. So there you go. God claims both male and female characteristics in multiple times. Yes, correct. In Spanish, all things have a gender, but they don't have a doohickey. Right, correct. So it's a thing. Yeah, it's like a... well, I mean, if we introduce another language like German, German has nouns that are neuter, right? You can be masculine, female, or neuter in German. So there you go. Anyway, so that's kind of a rundown of Allah. And Jibril is going to tell all of this to Muhammad, and Muhammad is going to go, okay, cool, I accept the position of prophet. What should I say? How does it work, right? And so Jibril begins to convey to Muhammad the teachings of Allah. And this is basically all of the tenets of Islam and the beliefs that they should have, and the way that Islam connects back into all of the other stories. Specifically, if we look back at Judaism, the way that Islam fits into Judaism goes all the way back to Abraham, if you know the story in the Jewish Tanakh or the Christian Old Testament, where Abraham has been promised that he'll have a son, and Abraham decides that he's going to instead have a son with his maidservant, whose name is Hagar, and then he has the son Ishmael, and Ishmael gets sent down to Arabia. Well, Muhammad says, we are descendants of Ishmael, and because Ishmael was the firstborn son of Abraham, who was God's chosen, we are also therefore God's chosen, and this is how Islam fits into the larger Judaic world. Most of the later Jewish teachings are not upheld in Islam. They don't celebrate any of the same like holidays. They do have some similar beliefs, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. If you have a time machine and go back in time, therefore, knowing the future and how it's determined things will play out, does that mean you're removed free will because you were aware of exactly how things... Oh my gosh, this is just getting like brain hardening here. In some aspects, he is father, but in other, he is in labor as in pregnant. Illustrative, since God is unknowable. Yeah, the unknowable part here and unrelatable part is the most important. Yeah, the Groundhog Day argument. Correct. If you know, do you know? And can you change it if you don't? Or can you change it if you do? Or do you change it simply by knowing it? Hey, you gotta stop licking your leg. I hear you back there. The dog is directly behind me licking her leg. Hey, I just said to stop licking your leg. Do you want to come up here and see me? Come here. Come on. Come on. You're right here. You can come right here. Come on. Hello. Hello, puppy. Hello. You give me sugar? Oh, my goodness. Oh, thank you. Hello. Hello. Oh, good gracious. What are you up to? Do you just want some attention? You just want some attention? No, she got bitten on her leg by something, and it swelled up pretty big. It's about that big now, and She has been licking it to the point where it doesn't have fur on it anymore, and we don't know what it is. I kind of think it was probably a snake, but it could have also been some bug. But it pretty clearly itches her because she's been licking it pretty hard. But she's very nosy, and she won't leave things alone. It's already gone down. It was only swollen up for about a day, and it was back over the weekend. Like the swelling is all gone down, and she's not limping or anything, so it doesn't it's not impinging her movement. It's just pretty clearly still itchy, and it's developing a scab, and she hates scabs. So she's just licking and licking and licking. Yep. So she's a nosy little puppy, and if there was something in the bushes, she was going to try to use her big mutant feet to get at it. Most union workers hate scabs too. That's a fair point. She is pro-union. The union of puppies. Under the guise of getting as many TREATSs as possible. All right, so Muhammad at this point is living in the city of Mecca. And after learning all of this stuff from Jibril, who was conveying words from Allah, Muhammad starts preaching. And he doesn't get a lot of traction. The first converts to his faith are basically people that were in his family. His wife, some of his cousins, a couple of his extended family. He's not going to get a whole bunch of traction, though. And part of that is because Mecca, again, was a kind of a catch-all religious site where a whole bunch of people practiced a whole bunch of different religious beliefs. And he was just one more in kind of a larger sea of religious milieu. So because of his family connections, his particular clan, and I should have noted this at the beginning, the Arab world at the time was run by these sort of larger clan structures. These were groups that might have, thousands of people inside of these clans, but they are sort of acted under one banner, and typically there was a head of the clan. But Muhammad's clan was the one that ran Mecca. And one of the things that was very profitable for his clan was sort of keeping all of these religious sites going. And when Muhammad starts preaching that all of these pagan religions are bad, it starts causing a bit of a stir in Mecca. So much so that the leadership of the family sits down and decides to deal with this guy directly, and they basically give him an ultimatum, and they tell him, look, you're either going to shut up talking because it's causing us trouble, or we're going to kick you out of the city. And Muhammad, feeling led, doesn't shut up, so they kick him out, and he goes up to Medina, which is a little bit further north, right around here. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff that is intervening at this particular point. He gets a lot more converts in Medina. He actually does convert some Jewish people in Medina. He also kills some Jewish people in Medina that very openly denounce him and say that he has, according to these people, perverted their religion. So that doesn't go over very well. But he gets a big enough group of people that are going to convert to his teachings that he decides that he's going to go back and try to take Mecca. And there are several battles where his forces are vastly outnumbered, and yet he wins through some luck and some strategic maneuvering. Of course, all of this is attributed to Allah, who is protecting them. We are winning when we are small because Allah is giving us the victory. And he eventually takes over Mecca, and at that point, he is going to establish the first caliphate. And he's going to take the title Caliph. And this is going to be pretty important term here. So what this is basically a multi-dimensional figurehead, not figurehead, that's the wrong term to use, multi-faceted monarch kind of position, right? This is the head of the army, so this is like the commander-in-chief. This is the head of the political system, so he's the president. This is also the head of the religious system, so he's like the pope. And because the religious system was the judicial system, he's also the Supreme Court. So he's like the executive, the judicial, the legislative, the government, and the religious head all wrapped into one title, and that's what caliph is. So it's a pretty important place to sit, right? Most of the religions in the area monotheistic. There were still a lot of pagan people in the region, and that's actually one of the first things that Muhammad begins to target. There are a lot of shrines in this area, a lot of holy sites that had been attributed to various pagan deities. And as Muhammad begins to expand the followers of Islam, he starts targeting those places and destroys them because there can be only one God. And there's actually a little, it's called the Shahada. And it's basically a confession. And if you are a Muslim, you have to believe in this confession. And it says, Allah, there is only one God, that God is Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Right, so you basically have to believe in that as a basis of being a Muslim. Pagan sites get destroyed. People of the book, so this is again Jews or Christians, are typically going to be given the option to convert. There are some cases in later Islam where they are forced to convert, but that's for another discussion. But for the moment, we will just sort of put a bookmark in the story of Muhammad, because we'll come back to that Tuesday next week. We're going to have a special Tuesday episode of Adventures in History, because again, I'll be gone next Thursday. But for the rest of the stream here, what we should talk about are the actual beliefs of Islam. And the best place to start are the 5 pillars. So you may have heard of the 5 pillars of Islam, but you might not know exactly what they are. I guess I can show a couple of pictures first, though. So if we look at modern day stuff, this is a picture of the modern day city of Mecca. And I chose this picture in particular because we can see here this large mosque. This is the most important mosque in Islam. Because in the center of the courtyard here is the Kaaba, right? So the story goes, according to Islamic tradition, that all the way back in time, Abraham, or Ibrahim, if you want to use the Arabic version, came to this particular site with Ishmael when he was delivering Ishmael and Hagar down into Arabia, and he built a house for God. And then over time, it had been co-opted by pagan individuals who kept idols and such inside of it. And when Muhammad comes back to Mecca, sort of his triumphal return, he opens it up and finds indisputable proof that this was in fact the home of God, because he finds ram's horns. And they claim that these horns were the horns of the ram that Abraham sacrificed instead of Isaac on the mountain. If you know that story from the Jewish Tanakh or the Christian Old Testament. But anyway, so that is the Kaaba here in the middle. But most of the city of Mecca today is basically built literally around this big mosque right here. And you can see the city kind of sprawls out in these valleys as you sort of meander around. If you are not a Muslim and you were hoping to go see this, you are out of luck. As of a few years ago, this is even prior to COVID, this region was basically shut down for anybody that is not Muslim. This is the same case for the Al-Aqsa Mosque that's in Jerusalem, frequently referred to as the Dome of the Rock, even though the mosque itself is actually just to the side of that. There's a little complex right there, but I'm getting probably way too deep in the mix. But this is a pretty important location, so when Muslims do prayer, they pray facing this direction, and one of the important parts of the pillars is a pilgrimage, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But here is Mecca, and I can also show you this guy right here. So this is the basically the Grand Mosque of the city of Medina, and it is one of the largest mosques in the world. As you can tell, it's big, and specifically this little green thing right here is particularly important because this is the burial site of Muhammad. It's buried in Medina after his death. So there you go. Pretty interesting stuff. All right. So what's up with these 5 pillars? Well, there are, wait for it, 5 of them. And we shall go through them. The first one is, I just mentioned it, the Shahada. This is the faith that you have to have. You have to be able to say Allah is the only God and Muhammad is his prophet. This is sort of the bedrock or the foundation of Islam, and that is why it is the first pillar of Islam. You have to be able to say that I believe in Allah and that I believe in Muhammad, and therefore what Muhammad said was divinely inspired, and what he recorded and what was recorded by people later on also contained the truth, right? So there we go. Now, the second one is one that we're probably fairly familiar with. If you have ever seen basically any TV show or movie or something that has Muslim people in it, one of the things that Hollywood loves to show is prayer. And this happens depending on your level of either dedication, that's not necessarily the right word, devotion might be a better word. You are supposed to pray 5 times a day. And depending on exactly where you are, there are certain different times of the day that you are supposed to pray, but typically it's very early in the morning, and then in the mid-morning, and at midday, and in the mid-afternoon, and then in the night. And if you've ever traveled to a Muslim country, depending on where you go, that night prayer might literally mean in the middle of the night. And it can be rather shocking to wake up in the middle of the night in an Arabic city with the call to prayer going out at full blast from all of the mosques in the region, because it can get pretty loud. And I did not know that when I first went to the Arab world, and it scared the crap out of me in the middle of the night. You hear people on the loudspeakers chanting out the call to prayer, which is letting everybody know that it's time to go pray. Hey, you've got to stop licking your leg, puppy. I know it itches, but you got to stop. So, there we go. So that is the second one. It's called Salah. There's also charity, which in Arabic is zakat. And you are supposed to be a charitable individual. You are supposed to give to people that are in need. Specifically, it singles out poor people and widows and orphans. But you're also supposed to give a certain percentage to support Islam on the as a whole. Don't be a jerk. Yeah, don't be a jerk is a pretty good one that I think probably applies to just about all religions. I don't know offhand of any religion that encourages jerkism. Yeah, so basically, if you have money, this is because you have been blessed by Allah, and you are expected to use that money charitably. And even in the early expansion of Islam, one of the things that Muhammad set up was a particular portion of even war spoils. So if we're going to go conquer this city and loot the city, even a certain amount of the spoils of that city went to the larger community to support Islam as a whole, because there was a very big sense that all faith believers were in the same big family. And there's even a word for that. It's called Ummah, which is the community of Islam. So you're supposed to support everybody that's in the faith. Objectivism, that's not one of the pillars, but I think that objectivism can be okay in many situations. All right. There's also Psalm. The Arabic word is Psalm, but this translates to fasting. And there are various times during the course of the year where you are supposed to fast. And some of these are single day events, but some of them can be fairly long, including the largest one, which is the month of Ramadan. So Ramadan, of course, is a sort of holy month set aside for Islam, and you are supposed to fast from sun up to sundown. And this is what's basically a total fast. You're not supposed to eat or drink anything. Now, of course, if you are elderly, or if you are very young, or if you're sick, it's understandable that you can't go all day without eating something or drinking water, right? This is not supposed to be punitive in nature, right? It's not designed to just kill people. You meant religion that encourages you to be... Oh, okay. Is objectivism actually a religion, though? Or is it just more of an intellectual pursuit? And if so, can we also add postmodernism to that list? Because I don't know if the goal of postmodernism is to be a jerk, but certainly a lot of people that really get into postmodernism end up being jerks. I don't know if that's necessarily a tenet of postmodernism. It might just be a side effect. Objectivism is a philosophical school of thought, right? But like, is that really a religion, though? Do people turn to that for religious ideology or for spiritual succor? I don't know. You follow the teachings of Ayn Rand? Oh, no. You started out as a jerk. What should I do now? Well, see, this is actually... No, that's a great question. And this is something that I really firmly believe, that if we look at religion in sort of a metaphysical sense, right? We look at it outside of just the realm of what we believe. One of the points of religion is universal across all of the ones that I know, and it basically is to challenge human nature, right? There are very, very few religious ideologies that have anything that approaches the idea that humans are inherently good, worthy, beneficial beings. In fact, even in medieval Confucianism, there was a giant argument between a couple of different leaders on whether or not humans were essentially good or bad. And that's one of the few cases that I can mention where the consensus belief came out that humans are essentially good. But even the guy that said that they were essentially bad ended up going off to form his own religion, and that ended up being the more popular one for quite some time because the emperor used it and killed a whole bunch of other philosophers. But that's a whole other story. But I think that any real good religion probably has some element of pushing against human nature. And Islam definitely fits that. Islam does not necessarily believe that we are inherently capable of doing a lot of this stuff, that a lot of this is through the grace and mercy of Allah. And they do also believe in Judgment Day, where Allah will judge the world, and you will get weighed for your actions while you are alive. So there we go. Some members you have met that are kind of religious, but not intrinsically. No, yeah, that's the philosophy can lead to religious experience, and like modern day Confucianism is much more of a philosophy than it is a religion, right? So much to say that a lot of people don't even consider it a religion at all. I don't know if we can do that because there are still a lot of people, I think especially in places like very rural China, that look to Confucianism as a religious experience because it has been blended so closely with the native polytheistic and ancestor-based religion of rural China. But even back in the ages, it was different than it is now. Things always change. But what I'm basically trying to get at here with objectivism is that I don't think that there are many people, if anybody, that goes to that looking for a religious experience. Perhaps an intellectual one, absolutely, but I don't know if that's really what they're after when they start talking about objectivism. All right, so we've done faith and prayer and charity and fasting, and finally we have the Hajj, which is the pilgrimage. And this is a sort of systematic pilgrimage that you are supposed to take to the holy sites in Saudi Arabia, the city of Mecca, the city of Medina, and you are supposed to walk a lot of this stuff. There are very prescribed things that you're supposed to do. There's basically a Hajj checklist where you go do this thing, and then you go do this thing, and you say this prayer, and you do this action, and et cetera, et cetera. And this is supposed to be done by every Muslim that is capable. And when we say capable, there, again, is an understanding that not everybody is going to be able to do this, right? Not everybody is going to have the financial capability, the physical capability, the time to go to do the Hajj. But it is expected of you if you can. At least once in your life, you're really supposed to go do this. And a lot of people save for years to be able to afford to do this. And it's kind of a tight ship in the last couple of years, especially with COVID. Saudi Arabia has put limits on how many people can come in, how many people can come in at one time. And it's been a fairly tumultuous situation with the Saudi government and the Saudi royal family sort of governing the Hajj. A lot of modern politics get brought involved in this because, let's just be real, in the modern world, not all Muslim believers and followers agree on particular doctrines. And a lot of the people that would want to go on Hajj are from countries that Saudi Arabia doesn't particularly get along with, like Iran or Lebanon. So does Iran do Iranian Muslims get to come on Hajj to Saudi Arabia? Theoretically, Saudi Arabia could shut the whole border down and say, no, you can't come in. That would be really problematic, and you kind of get where I'm going with the modern politics playing into that. Now, so those are the 5 pillars. You got to believe. You've got to say your prayers 5 times a day. You've got to be a charitable individual. You have to fast during the appointed times that you're supposed to. And if you can manage it at least once in your life, you should go to the place where Muhammad himself walked and lived. And you should do what you can to get there and have that experience for yourself. So those are the 5 pillars. And that's probably the most important beliefs of Islam kind of wrapped up in this neat little package. But, of course, there are lots of other beliefs, and we'll go through a couple here because I want to make some clarifications, and I want to maybe set some records straight here. So Islam in the ancient world, at least when it was first started, was divided geographically according to 2 houses. This is something that Muhammad spoke about quite a bit, and it's recorded in the Quran several times. There is a particular region that is under the control of Islam, and it's referred to as Dar al-Islam, which is the house of Islam. And everything else that is not under the control of Islam is Dar al-Harb, which is the house of war. Now, why do I even mention these? Well, This particular set of beliefs has been used by a lot of people to try to attack modern Muslims, specifically those that want to cast all Muslim people as somehow inherently violent or inherently evil. And one of the things that you might hear a lot is, well, even their religious scripture says that they are at war with every place that's not under Islamic rule. This is why they want to bring Sharia law everywhere. This is why they kill everybody. And I'm not going to say that there are not any fundamentalist Muslims that believe in a very strict interpretation of the Quran that don't believe that, but the vast majority of Islam does not interpret these houses in that way. And even ancient Muslim jurists, these are people that basically interpret scripture and law, eventually did not interpret those the same way. By the time we even get to the 700s, this sort of two-house concept had even evolved at that point to people that were actively at war with Islam and the territories that were at peace with Islam, including places that they were ruling directly and those that had treaties with Islam. Basically, people that are going to be cool with us existing and people that are not going to be cool with us existing. And even modern day Islam has several different houses now, and there's a lot of sort of fine distinctions, but a lot of people that are modern Muslims will look at these two houses as kind of an internal situation where this is directing their belief and their attention in inward fashion, where the parts of their mind that are under the control of Allah in their head is the abode or the house of Islam, and the parts of themselves that they are still fighting to control are the parts of themselves that they are at war with. So people now have even turned this into something that's not even a physical location, it's more of an internal viewpoint of stuff. So if you hear someone basically trying to say all Muslims by definition hate America, or all Muslims by definition hate the West, or hate anybody that isn't Muslim, and they talk about the house of war, I hope that this moment that we just had is going to give you some background information to properly interpret that argument as one that is clearly biased and one that is clearly not accurate. Matthew 12:30, whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the stuff that's in Islam is, like Tuna is saying, is unique. Let's remember that Muhammad had known other beliefs. Like, he was familiar with Christianity. He was familiar with Judaism. This is how he knew how to make his teachings fit into that. And if we believe his situation, one of the reasons why he was chosen is because he would have believed what Allah told him. And he would have already known how all of this stuff kind of works in the first place. And he was the perfect person chosen by Allah to sort of bring these teachings together. So there are going to be things that Christians believe that overlap with Islam. There are going to be things that Jewish people believe that overlap with Islam, and that was by design, right? That was not sporadic. That was not spontaneous. It was on purpose, right? So, yeah, that's not a unique doctrine. That is an accurate statement. So, if we look at the map, if we just look at what we could have looked at geographically at the death of Muhammad. So Muhammad died in 632. If we were going to take this literally as it was initially considered to be like a geographic location, this green area right here would be the Dar al-Islam. And this goes back to a question that Brittany asked earlier, were there still pagan people in the area? The little key here tells us that everywhere there's a little flame sign, this was a pagan temple that had been destroyed by Muhammad. And if you look really clearly or carefully, you can see that one of those was right here in Mecca, because one of the things that Muhammad did when he retook Mecca after being exiled was tore out all of the pagan stuff from around the Kaaba. There were temples and shrines to various other gods. There were some big walled enclosures that had either reliefs or paintings on them that he ripped down. And he basically ran all of the pagans out of Mecca that would not convert to Islam. So you can that's why there's a little flame here, in case you were wondering, like, but I thought Mecca was the place. And it was. He just had to clean it up first, according to the story. Okay. So we've got some houses, we've got some pillars. What about halal? You may have heard the word halal before in reference to places like groceries or delis. And this is something that is going to be very closely akin to Jewish faith, because Islam has dietary laws. Right. It is food. Yeah. So the foods that are unclean or haram in Islam are pretty much the things that are unclean in Judaism. Now, Islam goes a little bit further. There are some prohibitions against stuff like drinking. And even modern Islam has expanded halal and haram to include certain things like certain medications, certain types of medical treatment can be considered haram. And like in Saudi Arabia, there is an entire pharmaceutical industry that is set up to be halal pharmaceuticals. So it's not necessarily just food. And this is true also in the ancient world. A lot of stuff that is not necessarily just food had been brought into the halal/haram discussion because it was something that you put in your body, right? So maybe it's not just food; it could also be intoxicants. What do we feel about intoxicants? Well, a lot of these people, a lot of Islam bans alcohol, so that is haram. Some modern Islam or modern Muslim people drink. Right? It's very similar to the way that the Jewish dietary customs go. Some people are very strict Jewish people and follow the dietary laws very carefully, and some of them don't, right? But he keeps the Kaaba because he just sees it having provenance, going back to Jake. Yes, so the Kaaba itself was cleansed, and all of the paraphernalia and signs of pagan idolatry were removed from it, and it was sort of re-sanctified as the original abode that it was supposed to be. That's a great point. And hey, Nintendo, good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. So yeah, you got to clean up the Kaaba because it had been effectively tainted by evil or by paganism. And if you want to see a better picture of the Kaaba, this is it right here. So this big building. Now, it is covered at the moment with this sort of tarp. And this is mostly to protect the original building itself, which is inside of this enclosure. So this is the Kaaba, which is inside of the really, really big mosque that is in Mecca. And you can see here people walking around it. Part of the Hajj is to walk counterclockwise around the Kaaba 7 times. It's part of the command of the Hajj. What's inside? Well, lots of stuff. And we don't really know all of it, but there are supposed to be certain things that we know are inside. Like I mentioned earlier, the horns of the ram that were remnants of the sacrifice that Abraham made on the mountain instead of Isaac. There are reports that there were some ancient coins inside. But just to be honest, right now, I'm not sure anybody other than the people that run the place know really what's inside of it. We just sort of have to go on what tradition tells us and what the Saudi Arabian government tells us. Or I guess you could say what the tenets of the faith dictate. That might be a less cynical way of saying it. I wasn't trying to be very cynical there, except for the fact that the Saudi Arabian government is shady. And I don't think anybody should have a problem with me saying that. Unless, of course, you're Saudi and a big fan of the royal family. And in that case, we're probably going to have disagreements on that, because I have very poor opinions of the Saudi royal family. Especially that whole murder thing. That's just not cool. Anyway, so the word halal basically here means permissible, and haram means not permissible. And you're supposed to stay halal and stay away from haram. And haram can be things that are not just food. It can kind of just be like larger, things that you put into your body or things that might taint you. No comment. You like driving for less than $10 a gallon? Well, I mean, the Saudis right now aren't really doing a lot to help out global markets because they're making a whole ton of money. OPEC has not brought its production levels back to pre-COVID levels yet. Are you not entertained?
Is this not why you're here?
You bring 3 lurkers. What's up, Angel? Good to see you, my friend. Are vaccines halal? That's a great question, Lumpy. And it depends. There's a lot of debate about that. So if you aren't already following my friend Angel, you gotta go give this guy a follow. He's currently playing the game Control, which is something that I feel like would probably give me anxiety issues, because you kind of run around and you find stuff, and then out of nowhere comes like a bajillion people trying to kill you, and you've got to fly around and they're shooting crap at you, and then you start throwing junk at it and it gets all crazy. But it looks pretty fun. But Angel's a great gamer and is a cool guy to talk to, so you got to go give Angel a follow. He's a great dude. Welcome, Angel and Angel's 3 lurkers. That was pretty much the stream today. Right? Just like running around and like, oh my god, oh my god. So hello to everybody that came in on the raid with Angel. My name is Shane. I teach college, and tonight we're talking about the history of Islam. And we're kind of walking our way through the beliefs of Islam. We've done the 5 pillars and 2 houses, and now we're talking about like permissible and unpermissible things. But the question about vaccines is actually a really, really good one. A lot of it has to do with the way that they interpret the vaccine to have been made, right? The production of the vaccine itself can be a problem. Very similar to clean kitchens, like in preparation of food. If you want to get your kitchen blessed in Judaism, you have to get a rabbi to come out and they have to do the thing, and you have to then sacrifice the food the right way, or clean the food the right way. You can't bring unclean food in or it messes it up, etc., etc. There are similar guidelines for those things in pharmacology for Muslim people. I will say this: halal and haram are not going to universally apply to vaccines. There are plenty of Muslim people that are, going to go get vaccinations and they're going to be fine with it. But just like there are some very strict Christian people that don't think that you should have vaccines, there are going to be some very strict conservative Muslim people that are going to say that vaccines are haram. Because of either the manufacturing facility that they were made in isn't halal itself, or the process that they use to create the vaccine isn't halal, or the materials that are used inside of the vaccine aren't halal. So there's going to be a lot of gray area, and it's really going to come down to typically, and this is going to be kind of similar to the way that it is now in a lot of other places, what the religious leaders say in the moment. It would actually be really interesting, and this is something that I probably should have looked at if I had thought about it before I got on stream, to see how Islam and many Muslim people reacted to the COVID-19 vaccine. That would be a really interesting deep dive to try to figure out. Santeria, like, yeah, pretty much. How do they determine either way for something like an entire plant? Well, it has a lot to do with original proscriptions. There are lists of things from I've got that turned up really loud. Dun 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 dun. Ashen Hair, thank you so much for that follow and for scaring the crap out of me. But welcome to the adventure. I did not realize that I had my alerts turned up so loud. How do they determine something like a plant? So, if you're talking about a plant as in like a vegetable, there are lists of types of vegetables that are okay. Most vegetables are okay unless it was like grown in poop. You're not really supposed to eat poop. But if you're talking about like a manufacturing production facility that's called a plant, that would have to have been set up in a halal fashion to begin with, right? I don't recall there being any formal declarations from Islamic leaders against the COVID vaccine. We were tracking those with religious accommodation waivers. Oh, cool. Thanks, KP. I appreciate that. Like a workshop. It would have to be set up in the right way under the supervision of somebody that could certify this particular workshop as halal. And then the workers themselves would have to go through certain procedures as they were coming in. And then the facility itself would have to package things in the correct way, and it would have to be shipped in the correct way. There are lots of like rules that you can use to get stuff to be halal. Just like there are lots of rules today for things that are kosher, right? Like there are brand names that you can go into a grocery store and purchase that are kosher because they have been packaged and handled and all of the stuff the right way. But when it comes to something like a vaccine, I just don't know. All of these are great questions, though. I hesitate to answer for the possibility that I could say something utterly wrong because I'm not certain for sure. All right, so welcome in. Okay, halal, haram. All right, let's talk about some scripture, like the Quran. The Quran is, of course, the holy scripture of Islam. It is a collection of teachings that were collected by Muhammad. And he, of course, heard these as recitations from Jibril, which were dictated to Jibril from Allah. So this is literally from Allah's lips to Muhammad's ears. And it was stuff that was not necessarily written down during Muhammad's life. We actually have historic accounts of the third and fourth caliph, Umar and Uthman, beginning the first movements towards writing this stuff down after Muhammad is dead, because the people that had heard him teach, that had memorized the teachings, were actually dying in war, and they were afraid that all of the first generation of believers might die, and then the veracity would be lost because nobody would be able to say for certain, I heard this from the lips of Muhammad. So the Quran begins to sort of be compiled in the 650s or so, and then by an indeterminate time under the Umayyad Caliphate, it is finalized. There's a lot of debate as to how much influence the Umayyad Caliphate had on the collection and transcription of the Quran, and that is almost certainly a description and a discussion to have in the stream on Tuesday. But for the moment, what I can say is we do know that there were some pretty old attempts at writing all of this stuff down, as noted by stuff like this guy. So this is the Birmingham Quran manuscript. It's a couple of pages from a much larger codex. This was written on parchment, and the parchment itself was carbon dated from about 585 to 645. So the terminus date for this being 645 of the current era means that this piece of paper is only about 12 years older than the death of Muhammad, which is pretty remarkably close. Birmingham, what does Alabama have to do with this? This is, of course, Birmingham in England. You saw a really old Quran at the National Library in London. Yeah, they've got some pretty old ones. And we know that they were trying to begin the concept or the prospect of writing all of this stuff down very soon after Muhammad died. This particular page being dated to that time period is really impressive. Really impressive. I'll say that if we look at contemporary copies of manuscripts, even things like histories that were written by people in Byzantium or Armenia, and these are just like histories of the region. We do not have manuscripts that come this close contemporaneously to the events that they record. So like Sabaeus, who's a Christian historian from Armenia that's writing around this time, we do not have a manuscript from Sabaeus that is even 100 years from the time that he wrote it. So the fact that this particular piece has been dated so close to the date of Muhammad's life is rather impressive. They have a room in that library that is full of world artifacts, like the letter from Henry VIII asking to be divorced. Oh, wow. That's interesting. What's up, Halden? Good morning. It's 3 a.m. Wow, that's pretty early. But anyway, there is the oldest piece of the Quran that we have. Now, of course, the Quran is properly written in Arabic, and if you translate the Quran into some other language, it is technically no longer a Quran. Arabic is the voice or the proper language for Arabic. Arabic is the proper language for the Quran, and you are only supposed to write the Quran in Arabic if you're writing it as a Quran. Now, of course, you can go buy a copy that has been translated into just about every language on earth, and usually what you will get is either an interlinear or a bi-faced book. The Quran that I have is a bi-faced description where on one page you'll have the Arabic, so you can actually read the official Quran, and then on the other page, that's the facing page, you will have the English. Or the interlinear, of course, is where you'll have one line that says Arabic, and then under that you'll have the English or the French or the German or whatever other language you're going to read it in, right? How much do we have of that codex? Is it just those 2 pages? Those 2 pages are what we know for sure. Now, there is supposedly a larger palimpsest of that particular set of parchment that has other pages, but due to good old-fashioned shoddy historical handling of documents, it can't be proven. It would be really cool if we could, but we don't know. Random fact about history. History is old stuff. I'm just picking. The oldest Quran that I have seen is from the 1300s and was in a museum of art, the Smithsonian Museum of Art, when they had a big exhibit on Asian art stuff. So that's not really a fact, though. Random historical fact. Muhammad died from being poisoned, supposedly. How about that? There's your random historical fact. Apparently he ate some food and recognized it was poison and spat it out, but it was too late. Supposedly. All right, hand wavy. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. So for the Quran Muslims read today, how old is that version? That's a fair question. Different people have different opinions. Now, strict Islam is going to say it's the same. It's the same. Certain versions of Islam are going to say it has been edited. It is mostly the same. They didn't necessarily change the core tenets, but they changed the implication. And that's going to get us to the division between Sunni and Shia. And then other people are going to say this thing's been edited about a half dozen times. Stuff has been added to it. Stuff that has been added to it is substantially later in the timeline, as in, 100 plus years after Muhammad was alive. Stuff got added to it. So there are lots of different theories as to how this all gets aged properly. If you really want to dig into that, there are lots of books and articles and such about the canonization of the Quran. And if you search for that canonization, canon here with one N, C-A-N-O-N, canonization of the Quran, you'll be able to find a lot of good published reading stuff. You just find it interesting because the language must sound super archaic, like us reading Old English. Well, what's really fascinating about that is because Arabic was chosen by Muhammad as, Muhammad records that God says that Arabic is the language of God, right? So because of that, Arabic has had a lot of staying power in its old version, because the proper way, like I said, to read and write the Quran is in Arabic. And because the text itself is so important, and one of the things that a lot of people do is memorize large portions of it, it's had a pretty strong influence on how Arabic is even still spoken today. So yeah, it's probably going to sound older. There are, of course, dozens of Arabic dialects from all over the world. But if you went today to Nigeria, where there is a big Muslim population, and you started speaking Arabic, the Arabic that those people would know is almost certainly going to be Quranic Arabic. They're not going to know like the Saudi dialect or the Iranian dialect, which has a lot of Farsi words mixed into it, etc. You get what I'm saying. So, but fair question. All right, so there's the Quran, but there is also another group of writings called the Hadith. This is interesting. So the Hadith are a collection of sayings and stories. And while these Hadith are not considered scripture, many of them are considered to be instruction worthy and teachable, right? So here's how this kind of works. When you read a Hadith, there are again thousands of these. It will have at the beginning of it a lineage, and it will say so and so wrote this down, and this person heard it from this person, who 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 heard it from maybe Muhammad. And these Hadith have anecdotes, stories, teachings. For example, some of them are like, I was walking down the street and I saw the Prophet, and I asked the Prophet this question, and he gave me this answer. Now, that's not the Quran because it's not recorded in the Quran. But if that is an exact quote from Muhammad, that quote has weight, right? So if this gets recorded in Hadith, this giant collection of stories and anecdotes and sayings has a lot of weight to it. Now, here's the thing about the Hadith. Not all of the Hadith are accepted by all Muslims. Some Muslims have their own sort of set of Hadith. Some Muslims have a different set of Hadith, and it's almost like a multilateral Venn diagram, because some of the Muslim communities are going to say, look, these hadith that these people wrote down, they were not written down to be accurate. They were written down to justify these Muslims' wrong belief. So they invented these hadith to give credence to their particular beliefs, not because they're authentic. So the authenticity is a debate, the interpretation is a debate, and the instrumentation of these is also a debate. But the hadith gives Islam a lot of sort of contemporaneous knowledge about the life of Muhammad, the life of the people around Muhammad. Some of these hadith are from the very earliest caliphs, people that were literally directly related to Muhammad. Some of them are from his wife, his second wife. So they have a lot of impetus behind them to potentially be used as teaching, but they are not equal to Scripture. And if there's ever a debate between which one is more weighty, you always side with the Quran, right? And if you think that the Quran is not proper according to the belief in the Hadith, they would tell you, no, you've got to go back because you're interpreting the Quran wrong. You are the problem. It's not a discrepancy. Your interpretation is wrong. So the Hadith are really interesting, and like I said, there are thousands of them. You didn't realize REO Speedwagon was so up on Islamic doctrine. I didn't know that REO Speedwagon had a song called Hadith. I'm not saying that they don't, I just didn't know that. All right. What about some denominations? Because there are different denominations of Islam. And let's put the two big ones up here at the same time. Sunni and Shia. Heard it from a friend who heard it from... Oh, okay. I got you now. I was being too literal, and I missed the joke, which is apparently something that I do literally all the time. Rank these three cities: Cairo, Mecca, and Medina. As in what criteria? As in coolest cities, or places I would like to go visit, or places that I could visit? Because could visit: Cairo, Medina, Mecca. Because I can go to Cairo and do whatever I want to. I would have more freedom in Medina to go see stuff. I would have the least amount of freedom in Mecca, for I am not Muslim. Importance to Muslims: Mecca, Medina, Cairo. Historical influence: Cairo, Mecca, Medina. Cairo's been around for, well, I don't know. Yeah, still probably Cairo, Mecca, Medina. Again, Mecca and Medina are really only influential on the political side after Muhammad turns them into something important. Prior to that, they're not really big cities. Now, Cairo, of course, is founded by Muslims later on, so it's a younger city, but Cairo also goes on to be the capital of Egypt, and is involved in world wars and stuff like that, and Mecca and Medina really aren't, just to be honest. Well, I mean, no. Yeah, I would still stick with that. Is there significant stuff in Medina? Oh, yeah. So I showed, I don't know if you were with us, Nintendo, but this guy right here, it is part of the Hajj. Yeah, it is part of the Hajj, and this particular mosque is part of it. So this big 10 minareted mosque is one of the largest mosques in the world, and it's in Medina. No, it's okay. Like, this is, I'm a teacher, and I teach this stuff all the time. I don't expect anybody to know all of this off the top of their head, right? Unless you are, Muslim, and you are probably better at this than I am. But yeah, this is a really big mosque here in Medina, and this little part right here, this little green roofed guy, is where Muhammad is actually buried. Yeah, this is a giant friggin' mosque. It's really big. Really big. Indeed, indeed. Honkin' big mosque. So this is inside of Medina. Yeah. Don't ever feel bad about not knowing some weird history thing, right? That I am odd in the amount of stuff that I know. Don't ever feel bad. You're here learning, right? That's way more important than anything else, right? That thing could eat 3 shopping malls and still feel hungry, right? It kind of could. All right, so what's up with Sunni and Shia? These are the 2 largest denominations inside of Islam. And very basically, we can break them down into these 2 points based on, just to be really, really reductionist, one major argument. And this is going to be something we'll talk about extensively on Tuesday next week. Sunni believe that the person who leads Islam should be the person who most closely exemplifies the qualities of Muhammad, right? So who is the best Muslim? Who does it as best as possible? And those people think, or Sunni believe that those people should be the leaders of Islam. And early on, this is going to be a problem because the Shia disagree. Shia Muslims are going to say the family of Muhammad should lead Islam, and only the family of Muhammad should lead Islam, because Allah chose Muhammad. He didn't choose some other random Muslim. He chose Muhammad. And so the Shia are going to trace the line of Muhammad's family. And the first set of caliphs, they're referred to as the Rashidun Caliphate, or the ones who did it the right way. This is Muhammad, his father-in-law Abu Bakr, his cousin Umar, his other cousin Uthman, and his son-in-law Ali. Those are going to be the Rashidun Caliphate. But at that point, stuff changes, and we get a new caliph who's not in the family of Muhammad, whose name is Muawiyah, and this is where we get the shift. Now, Shia are going to follow the line of Muhammad down through another 7 or so caliphs, but they're not going to be caliph anymore. They're going to use the title Imam. So the different Imams are going to be the bloodline of Muhammad, and depending on the version of Shia that you are, because there's even flavors amongst Sunni and flavors amongst Shia, you might be of the belief that the final Imam, when he was born, was taken up into heaven and one day will be returned to earth to reunite Islam before the day of judgment. So there you go. But Sunni is by far the larger of the 2. And if we look at the map here of Muslim distribution, you can see here that this light green color is where we see Sunni Muslims, and the dark green color is where we see Shia Muslims. Now, for the majority of what we might call political power, most of the countries in the world that are run by Muslim governments are going to be run by Sunni governments. There are only a few that are run almost completely by Shia, places like Iran, Azerbaijan, and Lebanon. If you know about the big civil war that's going on down in Yemen, that is actually between these Shia and, these Sunni. Wait, no, I said it the right way. The Shia that live right here and the Sunni that live around them. And the reason that Saudi Arabia is getting involved in the civil war down here in Yemen is because they're hoping that these Sunni will push out these Shia. And this gets a lot of stuff involved when it comes into global politics. The reason why Saudi Arabia and Iran are frequently at odds with each other is because of religious differences like this that go back 1,400 years in history, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds very apocalyptical. Yeah, so again, the Muslim faith does have a final judgment where at the end of time, Allah will judge everybody, and depending on the particular interpretation of the end of the world, if you are one of these 12 Shia followers, you believe that the 13th Imam will return from his stasis that he has been put in by Allah, and will reunite all of Islam under one banner, and then reunite all of the earth under Islam. What's happening in Afghanistan? You see they're both Sunni and Shia. That is correct. Now, if we go back to the map here, most of the Shia here are really high up in these really rough mountains. And one of the reasons why Afghanistan is such an internally tumultuous country is, again, because of these religious differences. But also, there is a fairly big break here between the people that have money in Afghanistan and the people that don't. And that also breaks a little bit along these the lines here. Typically, the richer people or the more in control people in Afghanistan are going to be Sunni, like the Taliban. The Taliban are mostly Sunni, and other groups that they sponsored, like Al Qaeda, are also Sunni. Did Jewish people believe in a revelation? There is kind of a judgment, but not like destruction of the world, something that you might read like in the Apocalypse of John. It's a lot milder than that. So there are other groups of Islam, but they're much smaller. There's a group that is called Ibadi, who are mostly in the country of Oman. They have their own sort of independent history. There are Sufis, who are somewhat like what we might call... I hate using this term, but it's the term that everybody uses, so I feel like I need to so that you can understand it. Sufis are like Muslim mysticism believers. That's a really poor descriptor of what Sufis believe in, but most people are going to refer to Sufis as basically Muslim mysticism. But if we look across the world and we look at Muslim populations, you can see here the darker color here, the more Muslims are in the country. And if you look at where we're looking at, this is mostly, if we look at the contiguous portions here, this is going to be mostly contiguous with what the Ottomans and the Umayyads are going to conquer. Now you see pockets down here of Southeast Asia. Islam expansion into Southeast Asia is a very fascinating topic, and I'm really looking forward to talking about that when we get to this area in Adventures in History, because I don't think that a lot of people realize how Muslim this Southeastern Asian region really is, especially Indonesia and Malaysia. Indonesia is like one of the most populous Muslim countries on earth. But you can see here it's, again, mostly in Asia and Northern Africa is where we have really big, like 80, 90+% of faith believers in this area are Muslim. Alrighty. Now, it would be remiss of me if I did not mention that there is a growing but still minor, I feel it's okay to call this a minor percentage or a small percentage, but it is a growing percentage of Islamic believers that are trying to basically abandon this Sunni Shia split, and they basically consider themselves like unaligned Muslims, and a lot of these people are not really going to think very much about, who's a Sunni and who's a Shia. And it's also fair to say that in many populations where the majority of the people are Muslim, not everybody sits around and asks, like, do you go to the Sunni mosque or you go to the Shia mosque? A lot of the differences between these denominations are going to be exacerbated as individuals rise in power. So governments are going to have to sort of play to these angles because they're going to be expected to. Of course, like in Iran, Iran is technically a democratic theocracy with the Ayatollah, who is the highest Shia cleric in the country, effectively deciding who gets to be president. So there are going to be individuals that are going to perpetuate these divisions, and there are, of course, some everyday Muslim believers that are going to be very aware of their Sunni or Shia status. But there are a lot of people that practice Islam, especially in countries like America or Canada, that probably don't spend a lot of time thinking, am I Sunni or am I Shia? Because to them, their religion is a religion that teaches them to be nice to people and teaches them to pray and teaches them to give money to the poor, etc. So there is a growing unaligned movement within Islam that is trying to, if not abandon these differences, at least diminish their importance overall. So, you haven't once heard you mention a moon god, which many fundamentalist Christians say Allah is based off of. Well, that comes from a really pointed and spurious attempt at saying that Muhammad was actually worshiping a pagan god who was popular in Arabia at that time, and it's basically just a way to delegitimize Islam, and it doesn't really have any basis. And if you actually knew anything about Islam, not like you, but if those people really knew what Islam was, and what Muhammad taught, that is a completely baseless allegation. Muhammad went out of his way to connect Islam to the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Jesus. And it's not a moon god. This comes from the location of the Kaaba being used by Bedouins to conduct ceremonies to the moon gods, but it doesn't take into account that when Muhammad took Mecca over, he ran all of those people out or forced them to convert. It's a very selective cherry picking of the story designed purely to make a straw man argument that you can use to then knock down Islam. We need a Jack Chick episode so that I can debunk chick tracks. Junk Collector, it's really funny that you mentioned that. I don't know how many of you know, but I actually kind of have a I kind of have an interesting love of what are called chick tracks, which are basically these little handy dandy, mostly full of partial bad rhetoric, handed out by lots of Christians. And I'm mentioning this because right here on my table, I actually have a collection of probably 20 different little chick tracks that I have collected over the course of the last several years because I love these. Not because I believe them. I love them because it reminds me how much people are willing to go outside of their way to try to make somebody else wrong. And I don't know, man. It makes me laugh sometimes. I'm amazed at the breadth of your knowledge. Lumpy, I appreciate that, and I really do, coming from someone as knowledgeable as you. Let me reiterate that, and I'll preface my reiteration with I am not saying this to try to make myself a hero, but the world is better when people know more stuff. And I have made it a life's goal to learn a whole bunch of stuff in a very detailed way so that I can then tell other people in a relatable way to help them understand so that the world is then better. And I do take that seriously. That's why I teach as a profession. I could almost certainly go get a job making much more money than I do. But this is my attempt at leaving the world better than I found it. And if I can succeed in doing so, I will die with no regrets. No, these are actually so this is about 4 different instances. This isn't just the one big bundle. A lot of these were in the one big bundle, but I found a couple of these when I was at a strip mall with KP. We found some there. The giant bundle was most of this, but then there was even another collection that I got when I was at Walmart in the city where I teach. So it's about three instances worth, if that makes any sense. Yeah, I got to go pick up some stuff for work. All right, Kyle, take it easy. Thanks for dropping by. Hope you're having a good one. Hope work goes well. No regrets. No regrets. Not even one? Nope. Thanks, Late Bloomer. I appreciate it. You got one of those instead of candy when you were trick-or-treating? Yeah. Oh, the mall, right? You're gearing up for an epic story if you had found those at a strip club. No, strip mall. Strip mall. We got a good one at the outlet. Yeah. Some of those from the outlet mall are in this giant stack right here that I have. All right, everybody. So that is Islam. And I hope that over the course of our discussion, I have been able to make some things more clear. I have been able to disambiguate some of the stuff that you might have heard offhand from other people about Islam. And I hope that I've answered all of your questions about Islam. But if you have any other questions, I would love to answer them. And I would be very happy to do so. I try to. That's the plan. You despise the ones shaped like money? Yeah. I've seen them being given as tips too, and that's a special kind of shady. All right. I'm in a very odd position right now. A very odd position. That being, I don't have anybody that I follow that is currently streaming, which is very, very odd. I don't know if I've ever been streaming and not have somebody to raid. Let me see who might be on the TKF list that's streaming. TKF. Now live. Boop-a-doo-doop-a-doo. Science is streaming. What is he streaming? First ever 3D print, planarian regeneration, microscopy, and more. Well, that sounds delightful. I think we're going to go raid science. I don't think I've ever raided science before. Oh, I clearly haven't because I'm not following science. All right. You're drunk as crap and could go. That's okay, Noger. You're welcome to. Go watch Tiny Shoes if I haven't. I don't know what Tiny Shoes is. There's a redemption up there somewhere. What redemption? Oh, what's in the news? What up, Tuna? What is in the news? Do I need to talk about something specific in the news, or do I do what? Is there a specific thing, or a Partific is specific and particular mushed. You haven't seen the news today. Legos. We're gonna go rate science. He's a fellow TKF streamer, so that's going to be a happy place for us to go visit. And I guess I should shout out. So for those of you that don't know, I am a part of the Knowledge Fellowship, and you can read that little spiel right there that I was about to give. There's a group of people that teach on Twitch, and if you are interested in seeing some more people that are educational streamers that talk about stuff that can download the good stuff into your brain, give that click right there and find the list of other people that are in our group, and you are going to find a lot of great people with a lot of great knowledge that are going to be able to fill your brain up with the good stuff. So what's in the news? I think the biggest thing that I could say that is in the news right now, and I always try to talk about stuff going on in the world, there is a really big drought issue in the world right now. In Europe and in China, there are massive droughts to the point that it's becoming even impossible to navigate some of the rivers that are basically the arteries of trade in the area. It's pretty bad. There are droughts going on in the Southwest, like Texas and California and stuff like that as well, but it's a global phenomenon. In China, it is very heavily due to their overuse of their water. China has basically used up all of its own water and is now literally importing water because it has very poorly managed its ecosystem. In Europe, it's because of the heat. And this is due to global warming. And if you are not down with the fact that we are screwing up the world, I really encourage you to not go to a news channel and look up anything about climate change. I really encourage you to go to scientific journals, specifically to things that are meteorological journals or climate journals or climatology journals, and read stuff directly from actual professionals that know what they're doing, not just somebody that says, well, now I'm not a scientist. Well, then go read what the scientists are saying. Heads up, they're saying there's a problem with climate change. So this is happening all over the place. Tiny shoes. Okay, I'm going to have to open this tab up. I don't even know if I want to watch that or not. It's already kind of freaking me out. The Rhine River, yeah. Texas drought has moved into flood mode. Yeah, it's been raining around here like crazy. Bernie Sanders is streaming. Yeah, I don't know what this giant link is. What is this giant link? Twitter something. Standing in the middle of China's largest freshwater lake. Yeah, there you go. There you go. And it's not there. There you go. Thank you, Junk. That is indicative of everything that I was just saying. Everything after the question mark is identifying. Yeah. Well, IPCC. Yeah, read something from like the international climatology groups. And also, hey, you Raging Hamster, good to see you. NASA and NOAA put out really good stuff. Correct. No. That's actually that's a great link. And China is starting to talk about redirect rivers that start in Tibet. Yeah. They're already redirecting rivers, and they have already basically cut Vietnam off of water. And it's It's so messy. All right. We are going to go and raid Science, who is currently talking about something. At the moment, there's an opossum hand puppet. So there we go. Yeah, if they were going to cut off India, that's like World War III territory. Yeah. That's also why China is very much interested in Kashmir, by the way, and has purchased or obtained part of Kashmir. Is it a ferret? I don't know. It might be a ferret. It's some small furry animal. Maybe China will develop cheap desalination. Maybe China will overthrow its government and become an actual democracy. Oh, it is a ferret. Okay, there we go. I'm not familiar with the hand puppets used in Science's stream. All right. Anyway, we're going to go raid, and Science again is one of our fellow TKF members. Paladin, I don't actually know when it was founded. I know that it's been around for at least a couple of years. I saw that question earlier, and I just remembered to actually answer the question. I apologize for not seeing that earlier. I don't know exactly when it was founded, but at least a couple of years back. So thanks everybody. The next time you'll definitely see me is on Tuesday afternoon. We're going to be doing a special Adventures in History on Tuesday because again next Thursday I will be out. Hope you all have a good one until then. Yell adventure when we get there, and throw those beautiful adventure hat emotes in if you got them. Until then, take care of yourselves. Graythar! Hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hope you're having a good one. Thank you all so much for being around. You're awesome people. You make my day better. And I'll see you next time.